Good morning, Mr. Bürer. Thank you very much for
Morning.
joining me today. On the March 7th, Switzerland is preparing to vote regarding the digital ID, and there are many strong opinions for and against this initiative. This is why I wanted to invite you as the managing director of Digital Switzerland and just an industry expert to discuss your opinions on a few of the topics and challenges in this vote. Let's start just with saying what is the idea behind this eID, electronic ID, and why is it not an electronic passport?
Sure. Thank you again for inviting me, and pleasure to be here and answer to your questions. The first question is a fundamental one. Why do we need an eID law? You know, today we have hundreds of logins, okay? We call them organic logins. You go on e-commerce, then you go on your city platform, and you have many different logins. None of them is guaranteed by the state. And that's exactly what the eID law would like to put on the market, is having a digital identity for everyone in the country who wants to do it. It's on voluntary basis, who is certified and guaranteed by the Swiss state. That's actually the main purpose of the law.
Mm-hmm. And how can this digital identity help in the daily life of the user?
It's, you know, it will be one which you can use on different platforms online. So that's the big advantage. So it will be easy. There will be some providers, some of them will have it on the smartphone, you know, with a two-level authentication. So you will have the eID, you can approve a second time on the smartphone. There might be some USB key, I don't know. The market will tell which solution will be best. The main advantage is it's far less logins. It's not going to be the only one you will have for everything, of course, and it's only for Swiss platforms, don't forget. But it will be one which you can use for all very important platforms, again, city, cantons. If you have to do something important, maybe when you go to the Swiss state webpage, or even for e-commerce, why not? And just to come back on your question before, this is a huge debate. Is it a passport or not? And to be honest, we will see in 10 years. It's again something to authentify digitally. It's only for the online world, okay? So that's why we say it's not really a passport, because you cannot travel abroad, or you cannot use it at all in the analog, you know, in the real world. It's only for the digital space in order to log in on some important Swiss-based pages.
All right, because many
and it's very important, if I just might add something. Why is it important to be authenticated by the state? It's for both sides. For citizens, by the way, for foreigner citizens too in Switzerland, and for the city, cantons, or the state, or e-commerce page. I'll give you one example. E-commerce, if you want to buy wine, you need to be 18, or spirit, you need to be 18. And today it's quite easy, depending on which page, not to prove or to be wrong, and by saying you're 18. With this eID, your birthday, you know, is in the eID, it will be state-proofed. And the advantage is also for the e-commerce shop, they have a certification, a truly verification, you are more than 18. So it's bringing really a low and a solid basis about identity on the internet.
So would we say if e-commerce will be more transparent when it comes to a user?
When it comes to identity, absolutely. It will be more transparent, it will be more reliable, as long as people use this Swiss ID, of course. There will be different solutions on the market. Maybe we'll speak about it later on, but absolutely, it's all about transparency, it's about simplicity, and it's about Swiss state guaranteed identity of everyone in the country.
Good. Well, there are definitely many benefits to the solution. Coming to another point, under the proposed legislation, the digital identity providers will not be the state, but the private companies, private firms. How come those private-oriented companies and profit-oriented companies can have such power, and do you see it as a problem?
Okay, that's the big question in the debate, of course. Huh? And depending if you're right or left, if you're rather liberal or if you're very state-oriented, the opinions diverge very quickly. So the point is, this law has been developed for more than 5 to 6 years, in the last years. And the parliament, our ministers with the administration in Bern, they found out, the state should not do everything alone. The technology and what's happening in the digital space is extremely fast changing. We all know that. Myself, I'm in the digital space since 15 years. It's fast changing, technology-wise, architecture-wise. We are the users. We love to have friendly pages. We're used while using well-known solutions, the Spotify, Netflix, Uber, whatever. We're used to have perfect solutions. And the state, in this law, he's still the garant. He's guaranteeing the identity. He's delivering the identity. And actually, is that you're correct? They said the state in Bern, the Swiss state, won't develop the technical solution. They will give it to the market, which means, and they are not only privately held company, also some cantons of Switzerland or even cities can develop their own architecture and solution to provide identity. We call them the IDP, ID provider. I believe it's innovative. I love this solution. I believe it's the future. The private companies or even the cantons, they are closer from the users. They are closer to you and to me than the state in Bern. That's why I fear if this is just a state-based solution, it won't be friendly to use. We already had such a bad experience 10 years ago. It will cost lots of money. It won't be friendly. And by allowing the market to have a competition and allowing privately held company and regions to apply as ID provider, I'm convinced we will have very user-friendly and simple solutions on the market. Last remark about this point, at the end of the day, when you do such a law, you don't want to have only 10% of the population using it. You want to have 80% plus using it. So you rather have an excellent solution or different excellent solutions on the market. This is what the law wants to enable.
Good. And then coming to a point that everyone would agree that this law, since it has already been rolling for several years, it might be a little bit outdated and there is not enough technology for now. And then coming to a centralized system of the whole operation, it has some of the negative points. But still, why do you think it's important to implement this law now and not wait for a few more years to get rid of all the errors?
It's, it's a wrong debate because the law doesn't say anything about technology. So that's the big advantage. It's about, putting some legal rights about data protection, about the role of the state and the role of the ID providers, but it doesn't say anything about technology. And I agree in this debate, we don't want to have maybe one centralized database. Why not having, first of all, different ID providers? So we don't have only one owned by the state or owned by only one company. And yes, why not having in the future a decentralized architecture? It's not so easy, but I know there are some solutions out there, and I'm convinced, thanks to the law, in 2 to 3 years, we might have one of the ID provider offering such decentralized solutions. So that's perfect. And if we don't have, this law, again, we won't have state guaranteed identities. That's the big point. As of today, I'm always saying it's like in the Far West, a bit everyone, we have all our logins and the data don't stay in the country, they go abroad and they can do whatever they want with the data. So that's the big advantage of this law. And again, on the technology side, if an ID provider would like to offer something decentralized, please go ahead, let's do it together.
It's good. I think it is important to understand that nothing is being decided on the technological side, that it's just the legislation, because I think very many debates are going wrongly in this direction now when it's not the issue at this very moment.
Absolutely. And again, that's the big advantage of the law. No technology in the law. That's very important. You know, two years ago, when they finished the law, it was pre-corona. And in the meantime, there are new technologies. Blockchain is changing. There is now the SSI technology. You know, there are many new things. And in 5 years or 3 years, there will be new technologies. So let's please don't put any technology in the law. It will be a fatal mistake. Let's leave, you know, the market working on the best technology and the best user-oriented solution.
True. And coming to the Switzerland, following its path towards digitalization and electronic governance, is Switzerland following the same path to catch up with countries such Denmark or Estonia, or we have our own path here?
I believe Switzerland is late, okay? We have a huge delay in terms of e-government. We have many other strengths, by the way, in many rankings. Lately, the last 12 months, we were number 1 or 2 or 3 regarding entrepreneurship, innovation. And the last digital ranking of IMD, we are number 5 or 6. Not bad, huh? There is one area we are really far behind the best, and this is e-government. So now I believe might change in the next decade. I'm sure we're aware in Switzerland, due to the Corona time, we've seen how bad we are in the technology between the state, you know, the regions and the citizens. We've seen it right now. The latest example is how bad we are at just showcasing, analyzing, aggregating data of vaccines. We are really not good enough on this one. Other countries are better. Now you have to see, we have one fantastic thing in Switzerland, but towards e-government, it's a disadvantage. It's our decentralized structure, our federalismus, as we call it. You know, we are not a top-down organization as other countries. There is not one person in the capital who can say, no, we do it. Since we are very decentralized, federalismus, the cantons, the regions, they have a lot of power too, and they can decide a lot about such topics. But I believe now we're aware we have to move fast about e-government in Switzerland. And this is exactly the first next step we have to put in place is this eID law. That's the next one. And after, there are many other topics, e-voting, e-health. There are many things, but the basis, the fundament is having a law for the identity and the digital space.
I'm glad we are moving there. And what are the main barriers for the Switzerland to move into electronic governance? Why are we so late?
Decentralization, federalismus, clearly. It's a fantastic tool. It makes Switzerland almost unique worldwide, having such a direct democracy, you know. But like, again, take this example, and we should keep it forever. But take this law, eID, it's so slow because we took lots of time to find out the right way of operating, you know, identity online in Switzerland. Now we had a referendum, now we have a votation. And in some other countries, you know, the president, prime minister will decide and implement it. This is not what I wish, okay? Don't understand me wrong. Direct democracy is a fantastic tool, should be kept forever. But this is sometimes a disadvantage, you know, especially in the digital space where everything goes so fast. Now, again, we want to keep this direct democracy, don't understand me wrong. And I believe we really, after the eID, and I really hope it will be accepted. And after we move to the next one, we have so many topics in Switzerland, and we need to have the state, we need to have the regions, the cantons, we need to have the civil society and the economy together tackling this challenge of e-government. So more complicated in Switzerland than in other countries, but I'm convinced now we are aware about this topic due to the Corona situation, and we've seen some huge mistakes we've done. And now we're aware about it and we'll move ahead in the next couple of years anyway. The first step will be to have an eID law for sure.
Perfect. Then these are all the questions. I think it is much clearer now, hopefully for all our viewers and listeners as well. And we will see how it goes, the vote in 2 weeks, and hopefully we can proceed with the e-governance system, little steps in Switzerland.
Hey, thank you very much for interviewing me today and have a great day. Thank you. It was a pleasure.